Okay, so it looks like the recording has started successfully. So I will now hand over to the chair, Councillor Aja Ovat.
Thank you. Good afternoon and welcome to the Special Licensing Subcommittee today, the 2nd of September. My name is Councillor Aja Ovat and I am the Chair of Licensing. Before we begin, if I can have those present to introduce themselves, starting with the councillors on the committee, then the officers, and then the notice giver for Princess Banqueting. Firstly, I'll start with the introduction. I'm Councillor Aja Ovat, member for Northumberland Park and Chair of Licensing. Members, if you can now introduce yourselves.
I'm Councillor Sheila Peacock, member for South Tottenham.
I'm Councillor Nick DaCosta, member for Highgate Ward.
Thank you. Now, officers, if you can introduce yourselves.
Good afternoon, I'm Dale Barrett, licensing team leader.
Good afternoon, I'm Michelle Williams, I'm the legal advisor.
And I'm Nazia Chowdhury, Principal Committee Coordinator and Clerk to this committee.
Thank you. And finally, the notice giver for Princess Banqueting, please introduce yourselves.
Hello, I'm Alexander Buffetti. I'm prospective DPS and current manager of Princess Banqueting.
Thank you.
Fabian Sims, licensing consultant.
Thank you. Now with the first item of the agenda, filming at meetings. Please note this meeting is being recorded and will be available for public viewing. Second item, apologies for absence. Are there any apologies for absence?
None, Chair.
Thank you. Third item, urgent business. As this is a special meeting of the subcommittee under Part 4, Section B, Paragraph 17 of the Council's Constitution, no other business shall be considered at the meeting. Fourth item, declarations of interest. Do members have any declarations of interest? No. Thank you. Fifth item, summary of procedure. The procedure for the meeting has been emailed to all participants by the clerk. For the purpose of any members of the public watching, we will first hear from the licensing officer. After that, will be the notice giver will have the opportunity to speak. As we don't have the objector, the notice giver will have the opportunity to speak and present their application, and the committee and objector, sorry, no objector, the committee will have the opportunity to ask questions. All parties will then have the opportunity to sum up, and the meeting will conclude to allow the committee to deliberate and reach a decision. The decision will then be provided shortly after this meeting. Additionally, I'm going to note the ground rules for this remote hearing as follows. Please ensure your cameras are open and that you're muted when you're not speaking. If you have technical difficulties, please use the chat function. Please do not use the chat function for putting formal questions to the subcommittee. If you wish to speak, please raise your hand and direct all communication via the chair. We will take all papers as read unless there is anything you wish to draw our attention to. All speakers will be allocated 5 minutes to speak. When speaking, please be succinct and do not exceed the allocated time unless you request for an extension of time, which is at the discretion of the chair. Please do not share addresses of speakers, and in the event that there be several speakers for each party, please avoid repetition and perhaps consider having a spokesperson to address all concerns. Now, on to the sixth item, which is the objection to a temporary event notice for Princess Banqueting, 502 to 508 High Road, Tottenham High Road, London, and 17 Tottenham Hale. Ms. Barrett, please can you introduce your report?
Thank you, Chair. Let me just start with an apology, because obviously the licensing service sent out to Mr. Buffetti the rejection from the police with the request that if they wanted to be taken further, to notify us, but there was a breakdown in communication there, Chair. So we officially got the request back yesterday, which is why then apologies that we've had to quickly get this meeting engaged, just to enable Mr. Buffetti his right to be able to come before this committee today. So if I take you through the report, please. So that's a consideration for the objection that's been put in via the Metropolitan Police for the temporary event notice Mr. Buffetti has submitted for Princess Banqueting 502 to 508 High Road in 17, which is in the Tottenham Hale ward. The notice is at Appendix 1 to this report, and it should be considered having regard to the council's licensing policy, the licensing objectives, and of course the overall policy. And Chair, the notice relates to a proposed event that Mr. Perfiti wishes to start from 6 p.m. on the 2nd of September through to 3 a.m. Across each day, and that's up until the 4th of September. Authorization from the council is required for the sale of alcohol, the provision of regulated entertainment, and the provision of late night refreshment. All three activities have been ticked on the application form by Mr. Perfiti. Whilst most large scales or permanent businesses withhold premises license to authorize their activities, the Act allows and provides a light touch mechanism for smaller infrequent events, which can be held under what's known as these temporary event notices. An individual is known as the premises user and may give notice of a proposal to use premises for a temporary event, engaging in one or more licensing activities for no more than 168 consecutive hours. The licensing subcommittee is required to consider any objections to notice received and must give the premise user a counter notice under Section 105 of the Licensing Act if it considers it appropriate for the promotion of the licensing objectives to do so. If that is the case, then the temporary event may not proceed if a counter notice has been issued. The licensing subcommittee has responsibility for exercising many of the council's powers in respect of the Licensing Act. And consideration by the committee of the notice appended to this report is required because the notice has attracted the objection from the police. Chair, if I go forward, please. So, in consideration, when carrying out its licensing function, the subcommittee shall act with regard to the licensing policy, the statutory guidance, and with a view to promoting the licensing objectives, and all of the objectives are captured. The subcommittee must also ensure that all licensing decisions have a direct relationship to the promotion of one or more of the licensing objectives, to the policy, to the guidance. In doing so, Chair, the panel has before it, sorry, should have taken some water, has before it this matter. The licensing committee may decide to allow the license for activities to go ahead as stated in the notice. If the notice, for example, was in connection with license of activities at licensed premises, then the committee would have been able to consider extending existing conditions. That is not an option in here because there is no existing premises license in place for this particular venue. The LSC may therefore decide that the event would undermine the licensing objectives and should not take place in this case. The licensing authority must give their counter notice. In effect, Chair, to sum that particular section up, the licensing subcommittee has two options on this particular application. It's either to grant or to refuse the terms. It is considered appropriate on these for the officers of the licensing authority involved in the administration of the notice to make recommendations. However, of course, the committee has the representation from the police within the pack to make consideration in this determination. Where the authority does decide to give a counter notice, the person giving the objection notice may appeal against that decision. And of course, the applicant, the notice giver, may also appeal against that decision. And any appeals must be made to the magistrate's court. However, due to the timelines that are involved in this particular case, there can't be any appeal because it cannot be brought less than 5 working days prior to the first proposed event date. In terms of background, Chair, the premises itself, 502, 508 High Road N17, has come to the attention of the authority due to it being hired out for various events for which there was no license or authorization in place. by the leaseholder, who was Miss Cotlegut. There has been 3 different applications for the premises to date. 2 by the current leaseholder, Miss Cotlegut, and 1 by Mr. Stegario. Miss Cotlegut has recently withdrawn her last application and notified the authority that she no longer has an interest in the premises. This, however, is an ongoing matter that may also impact the current application. Mr. Stegario, as the managing agents, have declared that they have not agreed to a sublease that has been signed by Miss Cotlegut and Mr. Stegario, and they're saying that they had they've not given their consent for that. However, the application that you have before you for the TENS the application by Mr. Stegario is part heard and due back in front of the licensing subcommittee on the 8th of September 2022. Mr. Stegario has put forward Mr. Perfiti as his proposed DPS should the premises license application be granted. He's not actually submitted applications in that capacity, but he has said that that would be his intention. It is Mr. Perfiti who has therefore submitted the application for the temporary event notice. And we are assuming that Mr. Perfiti is acting on Mr. Stegario's behalf in submitting this TENS, but I'm sure he'll be able to speak and give clarity to the committee on that. The application states that the notice has been given to allow for a soft opening and a testing of the premises system over the 3 days applied for. The notice seeks the ability for the premises to be open to offer regulated entertainment up to 3 a.m. for 300 people each evening. The committee should be aware that the overall public safety matters remain unresolved, and the Building Control Health and Safety RA has submitted an updated list of matters that was shared with the agent on the 19th of August. The TENS for the 300 people say it's for a soft opening to test the systems, but the application itself doesn't actually give any further information. This event is potentially a high-risk event, as it's seeking a 300 capacity or a high-density, potentially vertical drinking event. We don't know because we don't have any additional information there. And additional measures would normally be required in such circumstances. There is no information as to how the event would be operated, what type of event it is, how it would be advertised. All activities, of course, are subject to health and safety requirements, regardless of whether they are carried out under a TENS or not. Event organisers should ensure that they have assessed any potential risks involved in their event and taken appropriate measures to control them. This may even include, appropriate safety personnel and first aid. There was no risk assessment submitted with the TENS. A fire risk assessment should also be carried out to ensure the appropriate safety equipment and the appropriate exit and the exit routes are available. And it's clear from the Buildings Control letter of the 19th of August, which Mr. Sims has received, that there are still outstanding concerns relating to fire escape routes and signage. We're not aware if a fire safety risk assessment for these proposed event days has been undertaken in light of the Building Control Officer's letter. And of course, one would hope that the premises, the notice giver, Mr. Stegario, has got their relevant insurance and so forth in place for any planned event. You cannot see from the application either if security are planned, and if so, how many and what their role would be. If there would be any searching on entry, if there's any rules around what people, customers are able to bring in or not able to bring in, or modes of dress, that sort of thing. Who are the target audience, really. We don't know if this is going to be a DJ-led event, and how are the public being engaged with, in terms of raising awareness of this event taking place, what information is going to be provided to them, obviously around parking, because the building itself is landlocked. The outside area also in front of the premises is a public right of way. So how is that going to be managed to ensure that, residents or people are not involved in attending the premises are not going to be hindered or blocked and so forth. The 10 state that the venue is a purpose-built banqueting hall, which is not correct. The premises was in fact a snooker club, and that was its built purpose many years ago. It was not really built for as an entertainment venue for 300 people as such. The changes in the planning permission has meant that a snooker club and banqueting hall now fall into the same use class. So there's been no need for any change of use under planning terms as such. The section 182 guidance is clear that it is incumbent on the notice giver to satisfy the licensing committee in terms of all 4 licensing objectives being met satisfactorily. And of course, despite the temporary event notice itself being a relatively light touch system of licensing, it is worth noting that all events being carried out must comply with all the regulatory requirements, including health and safety, risk assessments, and of course, prevention of noise nuisance, etc. The applicants did also, Mr. Peter did in fact also submit a late tens for the 26th through to the 28th of August, I believe, which was also rejected by the police. In terms of other considerations, Chair, the panel knows that obviously Section 17 of the Crime and Disorder Act 1998 requires us to ensure that we are, as a council, doing all we can to ensure that we're taking steps to avoid crime and disorder in the locality, in the borough in general. The Human Rights Act comes into play, Chair, and in the pack you have got Appendix 1, the TENS application, and Appendix 2, the refusal letter, and what the police have actually said on this matter, Chair. And there, Chair, I can leave it if you have any questions for me.
Thank you, Ms. Barrett. Before I move to ask the members for any questions for the licensing officer, Mr. Perfidi, if you could just put yourself on mute as per my ground rules, just so we don't have the background noises and we can hear everyone clearly. Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, so do members have any questions for Ms. Barrett? Councillor Da Costa?
Not at the moment, no.
Okay, well, I have one question, Ms. Barrett. I understand from page 3, section 3.1 of the agenda papers, and you mentioned it as well briefly. I understand that at the premises previously, it had been hired for various events where there was unlicensed events that occurred. Do you know whether the notice giver has any connection to those events?
No, he does not, as far as we are aware. No, that, as I said in the report, it was under Miss Kotlegut, as far as we were aware. The authority is not aware of Mr. Stegario ever, using the premises for an event at this time.
Thank you for confirming. Yeah, Mr. Councillor Da Costa.
Sorry, Chair, your question made me think of another question. Dahlia, you mentioned that the current license holder, the current owner or license holder, when I say license holder, I don't mean the applicant. No, I mean, so you said that the current owner or the leaseholder has not agreed the subletting of the premises.
Right.
Could you expand on that, please?
Sorry, so this seems to be an ongoing issue. So the council did have two applications for premises license that was under consideration, one by Ms. Kotlegut, one by Mr. Stegario. Ms. Kotlegut's matter, she has subsequently now withdrawn her application, which is fine. Mr. Stegario's application that was submitted also in the same time, but his one has taken place over a matter of months because he's done 2 sets of consultation on his. One of the documents Mr. Stegario submitted to us was a copy of a sublease to show that he was actually able to engage and be able to offer licensed activities at the premises. We learned last week from the managing agents for the freeholder that he had actually not signed any such document. and he put that in writing back to us that it was not, he wasn't aware of the document in any capacity, and he had not signed it, and Parkway Estates, who are the managing agents for the freeholder, had no part in that particular document, really. So we have notified this to Mr. Stegario. You know, it's for him to then, I suppose, it's really for him to go back to the agents, the Parkway Estates, and have those discussions with them, to be honest.
Ms. Barrett, if you could just clarify who the parties were to the sublease that you were provided with.
Right, so the copy, the sublease that was submitted to us under Mr. Stegario's application was the parties involved was Miss Cotligut, Mr. Stegario, and Parkway Estates. I suppose what alerted me to the matter was the fact that Parkway Estates was spelt wrong throughout the entire document, which I thought, as a, you know, for managing estates that's been there for years, they would know their name, basically. So, yeah.
Mr. Perfidi, before we move on to for the notice giver to give questions, just want to double check if members have any further questions for Ms. Barrett. None? Okay, yep. So the notice giver, you may ask questions now for Ms. Barrett.
Okay, thank you very much. First of all, I want to touch on regarding the lease. It was a purchase of a company. The Parkway Estates people, without me
Mr. Perfidi, before you go, is this going to be a question, or because you can, if it's a statement, you can make it during your part of the.
Okay.
Yeah.
What I'd like to do is ask Dahlia under what why is there such a major objection to Princess Banqueting having a temporary event when they're clearly being given to other places in the area, and with us having nothing to do with the previous, shall I say, ignorant people, without being sounding horrible, carrying out what they were doing without, you know, either the proper authority or following rules and the licensing objectives. Why is there such a major objection for myself and Mr. Stegario to actually progress and show the licensing committee that we are able and do work by rules?
Thank you. Ms. Barrett.
Chair, if I could just interject, that's not really a question that's relevant to the licensing officer, because it's not the licensing officer that's objecting to the TENS. You know, an objection has been raised by the police, and the purpose of this hearing is for that to be determined by the committee. So that, unfortunately, isn't a question that Ms. Barrett should have to answer.
In which case, sorry, in which case,
if you could come through me, Mr. Perfidi, yes.
Sorry, Chair. Sorry,
yeah.
Chair. In which case, Chair, do we not have a police officer who's responsible for the objection here?
The police officer sends their apologies. They could not make it, but their representations are within the papers.
Within the papers. So how can we? Okay, can we justify in any way, Chair, why the previous owners have a bearing on our ability?
Well, that would be for us to look into based on the papers that we have at hand. But if you have any questions for Ms. Barrett, based on what she's just said, if you can raise that. If not, I'll move on to Mr. Sims if he has any questions.
Please, if you can.
Yeah, Mr. Sims, do you have any questions for Ms. Barrett?
Not at this time, no.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, I'll move on. Since we do not have the objector present, I'll move on to the notice giver. If you can please present your representation, and please keep it clear and succinct, please. 5 minutes, please.
Thank you. Hopefully I won't go past 5 minutes. Right. Okay. We are in the process of starting up a new business in the area of South Tottenham. We're hoping that we can progress and help lots of different communities, people in the area basically want to fund and work with the licensing, the police, to have, how shall I say, a decent area, a better area than what it is now. We at Princess Banqueting have gone above and beyond the call of duty to make sure that everything is in place to adhere to the 4 licensing objectives. We've had every opportunity to show, and we have done. It seems to me that goalposts are getting moved. The premises, I can go back to the lease of the premises now. The company was bought by Mr. Stegariu, had nothing to do with Parkway Estates. It's not illegal, it's not going behind anyone's back, it's just progressing in buying a company and all its assets. Its assets being the lease of this particular premises. Currently, without a license, we would like to be granted a license for this venue so we can progress and do implement our business model. We, as I said to you, have gone up and beyond the call of duty to make sure that we can adhere and provide exactly what the licensing and police are requesting from us. All we want to do is move on from this. This particular evening, the temporary event is like a soft opening, so we can actually, if not prove our ability, test the waters. The amount of people that are likely to be in this particular venue is anything between 2 and 250. Now, based on what Dahlia said a little while ago regarding there only being 2 fire exits, it's actually a 3rd fire exit in the kitchen, which will be used for staff. And the staff will probably be anything between 25 and 35 people, depending on the size of the band at the time. Also, I'd like to bring in regarding a DJ. What is wrong with having a DJ at a function? Some people cannot, 1, afford a live band. 2, the bands that there are available may not be able to provide the music that they want. Also, having in between the musical, the live show, having a DJ play another type of music. Having a DJ does not suggest that it's going to be a nightclub. I can understand Dahlia's concerns regarding having, please excuse the expression, every Tom, Dick and Harry coming into the venue. We have families, we have booked events. This is not a pay on the door and come in and feel free to do as you wish. Regarding searching, we will be searching, we will be controlling in every aspect of the licensing objectives, every aspect, and they're all near enough the same. They sit on the same border as each other, and we are with intent to make sure that we prove ourselves able, because I want to chuck this in as well. We don't have the keys to our venue. We have the keys to an empty box. If we do not work with the licensing and the police, our money, our time, our efforts, and in fact yours as well, Chair, will have gone to waste. We want to be able to prove and show that our ability is there. We can and will do what's needed to function. Honestly, I can think of nothing else at the moment. There's lots of things I want to say. There's lots of things I want to say to justify, to prove. If Dahlia can justify that me, myself, and Mr. Stegariu are not able to function and work this kind of business, then please show me your proof, show me your evidence, and I will listen to it and try and, work along with you. At the moment, all we want to do is provide employment for people, security and safety in the area. Regarding the parking, there are 2 car parks adjacent, parallel, next to Princess Banqueting that will be used. We have 6 to 8 licensed security, one of which will be able to act as a car park attendant. We may even hire just somebody standard. On the tickets, there will be, on the back of the ticket, we intend on putting a map of where the car parks are for them to be parking. Outside the main entrance, outside McDonald's, parking is available from 7 p.m. to everybody and anybody, not just loading and double red lines. I'm trying to pull out so many things out of my mind now to show you, but I can't justify us not getting a license for this particular venue on this particular night for us to be able to show that our ability is there and functional.
Thank you, Mr. Perfiti. We've reached
My
5 minutes now.
My
Do members have any questions for Mr. Perfiti? Yes, Councillor Da Costa.
Thank you for that. Okay, couple of questions. So on page 10, which is your application form, you've said you've talked about this being a soft opening, but in it you've stated combined customer booking. So you've booked an event and sold it, and you're using this as a reason to say it's a soft opening. This doesn't match what you've been saying about this being a soft opening. So obviously you've had a client say, we want to have an event at your venue. You've sold it. Could you please explain what you mean by combined customer booking and soft opening?
Okay, soft opening will work alongside the customer booking and things like that. What we've done is we've tried to progress so we don't have to drag it out even longer, because we've been losing money. The venue's been losing money. We've not been able to progress because of, you know, the issues that we've had.
Mr. Pafiti, your the sound's not very good.
You need to
don't know
put
if
your.
Give me 1 second. Give me one
Yeah.
second. Sorry, because I've got also my batteries. I should have been more prepared for this, but I'm getting there. Can you hear me now better?
Yeah, yeah, we can.
Okay, right. So back to the soft opening and the customer base. We've promoted to friends, family of Mr. Stegariou and their friends and their family to be able to come in, enjoy an evening. And we've done this in advance, hoping that we were going to be granted, because in my mind, and Mr. Stegariou's mind, regardless of the issues that we've got pending, the pending license, we were expecting to be granted this particular temporary event, hoping that Miss Barrett and everybody else in the committee would be able to see that we can do what we say we can do. That's basically where it came from, Mr. Da Costa, and we're actually hoping to be granted this license so we can move on and put this all to rest. I hope that answers your question.
Sort of.
Councillor Da Costa.
Sorry, I mean, sort of, because my question is you've sold this, you know, if I think about my business or my days in hospitality, if I'd sold a soft opening, I would not be doing it at the level which you're proposing. Why till 3 a.m. on a soft opening if you are testing out systems?
Okay, it's not just the systems that we're testing the functionality of the venue and the staff that are involved there. I invite a visit this evening by the licensing authority, by the police, to test us in our ability. Regarding selling the venue, we haven't sold it as such, taking money and issuing tickets. It's more of an invitation. Please come, enjoy the evening, etc., etc.
Sorry, can I ask a
Councillor Da
follow-up?
Costa.
Apologies.
Yeah.
You've just said you haven't sold tickets, yet in your answer on parking, you said the tickets have maps of the parking places.
No. In future,
Fine,
in
okay.
due course, in due course.
Okay, fine.
Councillor Da Costa, any further questions?
Yes,
Yeah.
I do. Okay, I mean, Miss Barrett mentioned a couple of things. So we're missing a lot of information on this application form. We have no idea, apart from the ticked box sections, of what's happening. You've explained a little bit further, live band, DJ. We have no information about about what's happening in the event, what entertainment is being provided, what's going on. As Ms. Barrett mentioned, we have no security plan, we have no health and safety plan, we have no fire risk assessment. We have no assurance of how the event is going to be operated, how it's going to be run, how the ingress and egress in the venue is going to be operating. You know, I understand that you are keen to work with us and you're keen to start using the venue, but we have very little information about whatever is going to happen, and that's, as you can imagine, makes it difficult for us to say, actually, yes, we believe these chaps know what they want to do. So are you able to give us detailed information on the security plans, the fire safety plans, and the health and safety plans, the risk assessment, in order to make us feel more assured on the matter?
Thank you. Mr.
Can I
Sims, are
jump
you
in
going to be
and
answering this,
part-
or?
Can I, yeah, to some part, yeah. Alex is probably, as the person running the business, going to be a lot more able to answer the question. But I could basically state that since July, from the emails that I've seen that have gone back and forth from applicants to Dahlia and her licensing department, information about SIA security, information about how the function of the business, how it's going to be run. I know that there was lots of concerns in relation to the venue operating as a vertical drinking establishment, i.e. a nightclub or what have you. From the emails that I've seen from, I think around the 14th of July up until most recently, Mr. Sagariu and Alex have provided written statements and assurances to say that it's not going to be this. It's going to be a seated table service venue. I believe there's also a proviso to have a condition which would stop the venue acting as a nightclub. In terms of sort of egress customers, in terms of winding up of an evening, the security or all SIA door supervisors, obviously a accredited company, will be there providing that function. Obviously, Mr. Sagario and Alex are going to be operators of the venue, and they have to allocate those particular jobs, and as well as other jobs in running the venue, to the appropriate people. So Alex, I don't think he has a SIA badge himself, but essentially he wouldn't be able to provide that function. That function has to be provided by someone who's accredited and approved by the SIA door supervisor, by the SIA organization. Alex could probably jump in and say the rest in relation to the operation.
Yeah, before we do, I just see a couple of hands up. Miss Barrett and then Miss Williams, please.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just clarify, please? What Mr. Sims has just referred to was actually an email conversation that Mr. Stigariou was having back and forth when he started to engage on his premises license application. It was not in relation to this TENS application. So under the application that Mr. Stigariou has put in for the premises license, he has offered some measures, some of which Mr. Sims has just mentioned here. But none of that has been reflected on the application that this panel has before them for this TENS application. None of that has been put into the paperwork, which is what I have said in the summary I've given to all parties here, that nothing of that nature has been, nothing has been mentioned as to how the event's going to be managed, etc., etc., etc.
Sorry, Miss Barrett.
So just to make clear that that's separate.
Thank you, Miss Barrett. Yes, Ness.
I think we've lost Councillor Peacock.
Okay.
Just bear with us before we continue. Councillor Peacock, are you with us?
There's enormous noise came and everything just went. I'm back with you. I'm so sorry. I apologise to everybody.
No worries, Councillor Peacock. Thanks for coming back, and hopefully you won't have any further technical difficulties, but nice to have you back.
Do I need to repeat what I just said, Councillor? I don't know if Councillor Peacock heard me.
Please. I didn't hear a thing.
Miss Barrett, yep. If you can just repeat it.
Mr. Sims had just finished outlining that there had been an email between the authority and his client, Mr. Stagaru, from back in July, relating to how Mr. Stagaru was putting forward how he would be wanting to operate the premises, i.e., that not operate as a nightclub, various other measures and so forth. And I just put my hand up to say that none of that translates or transfers over to this application before the panel today in terms of the TENS, because none of that was put on this application for the TENS that's been submitted. Okay, I'll just making that clarity.
Thank you, Ms. Barrett. And Ms. Williams, is a point of clarification?
Yes, Chair, I really just wanted to reiterate what Ms. Barrett is saying for Mr. Sims' benefit, that this application is a standalone application for a TENS, and therefore members will need detailed information about this particular proposed event under the TENS in order to make their decision, and members will not have the benefit of anything that has gone on historically in relation to Mr. Stagario's application. So if we could just address the event that's proposed under the TENS and answer the members' questions in order for them to be able to make a decision based on the licensing objectives.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Mr. Pafiti, I don't know whether you want to expand on the question that Councillor Da Costa had raised with regards to the lack of information. Is there something you want to answer as well?
We've been, thank you, Chair. We've been getting prepared for this particular evening, hoping that it was going to be granted to us. Regarding a detailed explanation as to how we're going to run the day-to-day running of this particular venue, I believe it's a little bit hard to sit down and do a business plan on this particular thing based on the fact that you're dealing with approximately 200 plus 20-30 members of staff, and everything revolved around a business like this. We're not going to take it and improvise as we go along. We do have a routine that we're going to follow. We're going to make sure that everything is running smoothly. With regards, and I think this is the major concern for licensing and police, would be the people coming out if and when there is something dangerous like a fire occurring. We have enough security, enough sensible staff. I myself will be on board to be directing people slowly, calmly to the exits. There are, in my mind, sufficient exits for this amount of people to be extracted out of a venue. Leaving at the end of the night, again, that will be slow. This is one reason that me personally, I wanted a slightly longer late night refreshment license, so we can stagger people out slowly, not force people out within 20 minutes, half an hour, and then you get 250 people hanging around, lingering in the streets, talking and chit-chatting, and having the possibility of rubbing shoulders with other members of the public. Regarding the functionability of this particular venue and adhering to the licensing objectives, I cannot see somebody with my experience, and it's been for over 8 years now dealing with venues like this, these things, it sounds silly of me to say like an improvisation. There is a standard basic work function. The functionability of a DPS is to provide the safe environment in staff, public.
Mr. Pafiti, your reception's coming and going.
Yeah, I do apologise. I'm in a bit of a predicament here. I'm concerned about my battery as well, but I'm trying to get to as many points as I can. That one Mr. Da Costa asked, and obviously you guys are going to be asking me as well soon. I'm not quite sure if I've answered Mr. Da Costa's question. We haven't put down a word by word way that we're going to run this particular venue. We're going to allow people in. We're going to be searching them. We're going to be sitting them. Everybody's going to be having a good time. I'm going to be training my staff when and if they can serve drinks to anybody. In if over intoxication occurs, that individual is either going to be given coffee, water, and an apology for not being able to serve any more drink to them. Any issues obviously will be extraction, notification in our log, and I can't see, and I don't see anything wrong going, nothing going wrong tonight. I cannot see that because everything is in place. Regarding the security, we have one particular company that's ready. They're on call for me. I've dealt with this company before. They're a professional company and they are on call for me when and if we get to do it. I'm not in a position to hire staff, have them standing outside in the hope that we're going to get this temporary event notice. Unfortunately, we've had a major goalpost moving by Dahlia and her colleagues regarding previous people that worked this place. They have nothing to do with us. Chair,
Okay.
I think you're about to say something.
Okay, Mr. Pafidi. Yeah, if we can just also get questions from us. I know that Councillor Peacock also had a question. She had raised her hand. If Councillor Peacock.
Well, I'm very concerned, Mr. Pafiti, about you say that between 200 and 300 people will be attending. How do they know about this function? And if it doesn't go ahead, how will you inform them? And if it does go ahead, again, how will you inform them? It's nearly 3 o'clock now. I don't understand your time.
Absolutely.
Have you contacted them? Are they aware of this event?
Telephone calls and messaging will be sent to the majority of the individuals that are part of this function this evening. There are not 200 to 300 people attending tonight. There's approximately 80 to 100 people this evening that I'm aware of. The figures that we're referring to, that you just referred to, are under normal circumstances, what we intend on having in our venue once the license is granted, not if, because I cannot justify why we cannot have a license.
Okay.
I can't do it. I just can't see it.
Yep. Councillor Da Costa, you have your hand up.
I think I've answered that question.
No.
Councillor Da Costa.
Just wondering if Councillor Peacock had a follow-up to her question. If not, then I'm happy to jump in.
Well, I was going to just query the number because it's been saying all the time 250 to 300. Now all of a sudden it's 80 to 100. So I'm just confused.
No. Okay, let me clarify. Under normal circumstances, our venue will fit 2 to 250. On this particular instance, I'm aware of 80 people that are approximately 80 people that will be attending, or said that they will be attending. Again, this is a soft opening for us to put everything into place and hopefully justify to the correct authorities that we are able to do what we say we're going to do. The amount of people, again, is under normal circumstances what we intend on having in our venue. Tonight, we have approximately this attendance. We will be notifying them that we've received this. I'm being very positive here now because I can't see a reason why we would not be given a chance to show who we are. We have nothing to do. We are not the people that do not work by rules. We cannot function without our license. We have no intention of going against anything that you wish for us to be doing and adhere to the license and objectives. And I think that is the major issue that we have here, that they don't have faith in us.
Thank you, Mr. Pafiti. Ms. Williams.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify that the application for the TENS is for a capacity of 300 people. Therefore, if you grant the license today, if you grant the 10 today, that will be the capacity that will be being permitted, irrespective of what Mr. Pafiti says about the numbers that are expected.
Okay.
Thank you for the clarification.
Chair.
Yes.
Chair, could
Mr.
I just add to that, please?
Yeah.
Obviously, when you have a venue or you have a soft opening or a customer booking, and a person just says, customer says to you, I'm going to have 200 people here or 100 people here, the likelihood of all of those people turning up is sort of slim to none. Essentially, where the application form states the maximum number of people, we obviously put the maximum number of people. We wouldn't want to put 50 or 60 people and then 80 people turn up. That will be a breach of the license. So I mean, it's up into the maximum number of attendance. So where Alex has sort of enthusiastically sort of stated that, okay, we've invited up to 300 people or 250. The likelihood is when people get invites, some people confirm and come along, some people confirm and do not attend. In relation to the question from Councillor Sheila Peacock, it wasn't our intention to have a hearing for the temporary event notices to be held on the day of the event. The application was submitted, I think about 2 or 3 weeks ago. I can't remember the actual date off the top of my head, but we don't control when a hearing is scheduled. If we did, we would have asked for the hearing a long time ago. Essentially, I believe a counter notice was issued that said that the hearing could not go ahead. When Alex spoke to me, and I think I've emailed Dahlia earlier this week and asked why a hearing hasn't been issued. Sorry, why a hearing hasn't been scheduled.
I think Mr. Sims, I think we're digressing from the answer that you were supposed to give to Councillor Peacock about just purely the numbers. If you want to answer,
she did actually state. No, she did actually state why we're doing this at 2 o'clock on the date of the event. So just to provide clarification, obviously we don't schedule the licensing hearings, and for us it would have been easier to have it prior to the day of the event. Obviously we can't confirm who's going to be here today, and in terms of the event itself, we have to adhere to the standard of providing the application before the 10 working days of the event.
Okay, Ms. Barrett, is it a point of clarification?
Yeah, just to remind, not that I do need to remind the panel, but obviously with what Mr. Sims has said, the fact remains, you know, if you're putting for a temporary event notice, you do need to satisfy all 4 licensing objectives, which is what the panel is trying to get to the bottom of. How are the 4 licensing objectives going to be upheld and promoted if they're reminded to allow this TENS to go through?
Thank you, Ms. Barrett. Do members have any further questions for the notice giver? Yes, Councillor Da Costa.
Thank you, Chair. And I think the challenge is I'm coming back to my 2nd or 3rd or 4th question, because I think the response was, well, all of this is in our previous application for the general premise. We're not here to discuss that. We're here to discuss this standalone application. So my challenge is I am basing this decision on the information that's in front of me. You know, Mr. Perfiti, Mr. Sims, you all seem like really decent people. And I know, you know, as I said earlier, I get what you're trying to achieve, but I have no assurity that enough security, or in my mind sufficient, will achieve the licensing objectives. So my challenge is, you said that, well, you know, we've been focusing on the event so much, we haven't got time to write a business case. I don't want a business case. I don't care how much you charge or how you make your money. What I want to make sure is that people are safe. That's what I believe is my objective. And I still don't have a surety from you, Mr. Perfiti, how it's going to be run safely. You know, how are you going to manage that? That's the biggest concern. And I think you need to reassure us of that. Because we have to look at this application, not taking into consideration anything. I'm looking at this application right now, not thinking about previous applications, not thinking about future applications, but looking at the paper in front of me.
Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Da Costa. Yes, Mr. Perfiti, if you can answer that, please.
Okay, I'm not quite sure what paperwork you do have in front of you, but to adhere to the 4 licensing objectives, we have put in place all our licensed security. There's going to be, we were told that we only need about 6. We've decided that we want to go with 8 to be sure in case of any eventuality. My eyes are everywhere. I have experience in this business, vast experience, and I'm able to do it with my eyes shut. Obviously, I can't do it with my eyes shut because I've got to be observant and see what's going on around me. The public safety aspects will be our security, keep your noise down. It's going to be implemented via signage and training for the licensed security, how we want to work our venue. Our staff will be trained in the aspect of how and who they cannot serve drinks to contact security if any eventuality. Now, I don't want to be basing my things on possibilities and if this and if that. I want to know and I want to suggest that everything's going to go smoothly. But unfortunately, we have an unpredictable world. We live in an unpredictable world, and we want to be in a position to deal with any eventuality. Hence, more security, going above and beyond our call of duty, making sure that everything is in place for you to feel comfortable, Mr. Da Costa and Dahlia, and obviously Chair, and everybody else in this committee and everybody else around in the public. Regards to the prevention of nuisance, again, via signage, wording of security, the disbursement policy. This is why in future I'd like to go for a slightly longer late night refreshment so we can stagger people out, not everybody all out in the same time, which I'd like to do this evening. Protection of children, they come hand in hand with crime and disorder. And basically my drinking age, it will not, I can't run the risk of breaking any rules that you are going to put in place for me to run this venue, because otherwise everything I've done will go to waste. Everything that you guys are doing now, wasting your time today and every other day that we've sat having these meetings. I want to make Dahlia comfortable in believing that we can do what we say we're going to do, because I feel so far at the moment Dahlia is moving the goalpost for us every time. We've supplied and provided everything that's necessary, i.e. receipts, references, contracts, etc. I'm not quite sure if that answers Mr. Da Costa's question.
Miss Williams, you had your hand up. Did you want to make a point of clarification or?
Yes, Chair, just to clarify, it's not really about personalities and satisfying Miss Barrett. Today you have to satisfy the committee in terms of the event that's being put on this weekend. It's not about Miss Barrett, it's not about what's gone before, it's not about personalities, it's satisfying the committee in terms of the event that you're proposing to hold this weekend.
I think what Alex has said. Sorry, Chair.
Sorry, Fabian.
Sorry,
I absolutely agree. I absolutely agree with Michelle. Okay, that it's all about this particular evening, but this particular evening is based on past events that have happened in this particular venue that we're getting the short end of the stick for.
Mr. Pafidi, if I can just just say something. As my colleague, Councillor Da Costa, said, we're basing our questions on the papers that we have at hand, and the papers that we have at hand is the agenda papers which have been published publicly. So for us, there is no information, evidence in the papers to suggest what measures will be put in place. That is the question that we're trying to make sure that you are satisfying the licensing objectives. So that was the whole purpose of the question, so that we can make our decision. But I just want to ask one question, Mr. Sims, before you state anything further. You mentioned that you will be training staff. I would have thought that staff would have been trained already. In order for me to have confidence, I would have wanted that assurance that staff are already trained. So by you stating that they will be, it seems like the staff are not prepared. If you can please expand.
Okay, so the majority of the staff that I've got already in this industry, they're perfectly aware of how to do their job. All I need to do is put them in place as to how we want to run our particular venue. And as for training staff, the word training rather than trained is to include new members of staff. That's how we intend on. But I will go back to, I know it's all about this particular evening. Pre-opening, pre-opening this evening, which I intend to hopefully go there in the next hour and a half to 2 hours to get everybody in place and ready, set for a particular job. We've got a front of house that's going to be not serving, but observing. I will also be there, staff trained. It's not a bar sales, it's table service only with substantial meal. Okay, this is not a club where people are going to stroll in at the bar and every member of staff will be asking for ID. It will be either myself or front of house head waiter or waitress.
Okay. Mr. Sims, did you want to expand or add anything further?
Yeah, just to add that obviously we're here today because of the police objection, and the main contents of the police objection is due to the history of the venue having a large number of incidents involving crime and disorder. Again, I think Alex has sort of hammered the point home in his own unique way to say that he's and Mr. Stagario have never been a part of incidents of crime and disorder in the past. I think where he's presented what he wants to do with the venue and in terms of how they want to move forward, obviously he feels that they're being sort of hampered because of the activities of people in the past and what they've done, which was obviously without a license and which was illegal. The only reference points to provide to yourselves in relation to the premises is what he's going to do in the future. I mean, he can't atone for the wrongdoings of people in the past, and going forward, him and Mr. Stagari want to sort of present and act within the parameters of the Licensing Act. I know he keeps on referring to Dahlia and making Dahlia happy, and as your legal advisor has said, it's not about making Dahlia happy. I believe he probably means the licensing authority as a whole, the council in itself. I mean, Dahlia being the team leader of the licensing department and would be the first port of call if the license is granted and if there was a breach of license conditions or activities. So maybe Alex in his own special way has sort of said to make Dahlia happy, but again, he actually means obviously the licensing authority and the rest of the responsible authorities, because if they don't comply, then there's obviously serious repercussions for himself and Mr. Stagario.
Okay, Mr. Sims, I'll leave it there. If members, do you have any further questions? No further questions. Okay, so can each party, well, it's only the licensing officer and the notice giver, please sum up, starting with the licensing officer and then the notice giver. Please keep succinct. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I was actually just putting up my hand just to reiterate. I know Mr. Sims was just reading from the police representation, but it does go on to say what the police are saying is that they're not happy that the licensing objectives of the prevention of crime and disorder and the prevention of public nuisance will be upheld should attendance be granted for up to 300 people across 3 days until 3 a.m. hours at the venue, and they feel that such long hours are not necessary or acceptable for a soft opening.
Thank you.
But
And the notice
sorry,
giver,
Chair, if I could just.
Yeah, you'll have the opportunity now to sum up. So if you can just sum up now.
Okay.
Mr.
If I take literally 30 seconds, I believe Alex probably wants to take the rest of the time in order to sort of sum up. I mean, my stance on what Dahlia has said on behalf of the police about having the hours being a bit excessive in relation to the premises. There's other venues which have been authorised by the police and the Environment Health Department until a lot later. And I make reference to the City of Praise in Excel House. They've been approved temporary event notices until 4 in the morning. So it doesn't seem to be a consistent approach in terms of allowing particular venues to operate.
Thank you.
Alex could probably take up the rest of the 5 minutes. He has to sum up points.
Thank you, Mr. Sims. Before we go to Alex, I saw Ms. Williams put her hand up. Ms. Williams?
Yes, Chair. Unfortunately, I just need to give some legal advice in terms of tents that have been approved for other venues, because obviously each application has to be treated on its merits. It's not, a comparison between venues and because other venues have got a 10 until a certain time, then automatically other venues should have the same time. Every application has to be looked on its merits. The information that's been provided in respect of those applications may have been very different. The capacity may have been very different. You just don't know. So the whole purpose is for every application to be treated on its merits based on the information that you have before you. So we may not be comparing like with like.
Thank you, Ms.
Just to
Williams.
clarify.
Thank you for the clarification. Mr. Pafidi, if you can please sum up and please keep succinct. Thank you.
Okay. Now, I totally agree with Ms. Williams regarding every venue with its own merits. Unfortunately, for us, we're getting the short end of the stick, and I'm going back to what was said earlier on, because of other people's inconsistencies, unprofessionalism, and inability to adhere to the law. Unfortunately, again, we're getting the short end of the stick, and it's nothing to do with the character of Dahlia or anybody else working within that office. It's all to do with our goalposts getting moved and us getting hampered by the previous owners. They have nothing to do with us. We want the ability to show that we can. If we're not given this opportunity this evening, there's no way that we can do this, and we're going to go through the appeal system. We're going to end up in court, people wasting money, time, etc., etc. All we want to do is be able to show that we are functionable, just like Regency Banqueting Suite and every other venue in the South Tottenham area. We are a banqueting hall. It was a snooker hall once upon a time. Many years ago. I used to play snooker there 35 years ago.
Okay, Mr. Pafiti, if you can just concentrate on the licensing objectives and how you'll be able to satisfy that. Before I do let you sum up that, Ms. Williams, did you want to add something to clarify?
Yes, sorry, Chair. Just another point of clarification. There won't be an appeal from this application, particularly as there's no time for an appeal now, given that the event is starting this evening. The statutory timescales wouldn't be able to be adhered to.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Mr. Pafiti, if you can just concentrate on how you will satisfy the licensing objectives. Thank you.
I apologise about that, Chair, but it's so passionate to me, I keep referring to it. How we're going to adhere and how we're going to make everybody feel comfortable regarding this. We're going to put everything into place as requested by us. If you want me to detail everything, I can do that, but we'll end up being here and for another couple of hours, and you guys won't be able to make your come to your decision, and we won't be able to go and prepare for our evening. What I'd like to do is plead with you to allow us to show you this evening. How can I do that? Can I sit down and write for you a big, long 3, 4, 5-page essay as to how we're going to run this venue? Because it isn't only from when people arrive till they go. It's the 3-4 hours prior to setting up. Basically setting up of a venue to provide food, drink, entertainment for these people. It's very hard. I think I touched on with regards to the security, my eyes everywhere, my staff that have already been told how to, trained and taught. They've already done that. Teaching is to do with as you go along. You learn things every day as you go along with these particular venues. You're dealing with so many different types of characters. I'm able to do that. As a DPS, I've worked personally, professionally, and correctly for over 8 years in this business. I have my own licensed venue. I'm a DPS for many years, and I've not had any issues with any licensing authority. And I'm putting that down to my professionalism and my ability to adhere. If you want to test me, please do so. Allow me to go on this evening. Come and pay me a visit. I can't really say much more. I'll be going on and on and on and on, Chair, and we're not going to get anywhere.
Thank you, Mr. Pafidi, and thank you everyone for summing up. Thank you all. We have now come to an end of this item I ask that all parties please leave the meeting room so that the committee members have an opportunity to deliberate and make a decision on the application. The parties will be notified of the decision shortly after this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, Ms. Barrett. Thank you. I think we're still being recorded. Naz, if you can let us know.